The following program is intended for mature audiences.
A democratic republic of sports. The Sportsocracy with ESPN Asheville hosts Tank Spencer and Jeremy Greene.
Welcome into the Wicked Wheat Studios, wickedwheatbrewing.com. Drink different. I'm Jeremy Greene. This is Brian Haynes. This is Tommy Bradley. And this is the Sportsocracy. Last night was fun.
It was.
Knicks fan Brian, I feel like you should be given the latitude to lead us off here.
Well, listen, the Knicks were able to win Game 2 last night. The Garden was absolutely rocking. The energy in there was amazing. People were tweeting about it all over the place. Jay Williams talked about it this morning on the ESPN show. He said how he was actually courtside, and he's never really experienced MSG before. He grew up in Jersey, and he went to a lot of Nets games. He never really experienced like a playoff atmosphere in Knicks game, and he said, I completely understand what everybody's talking about last night. First and foremost, they got outplayed in the first half. Every single time they seemed to make a little bit of a run, Atlanta would come down and just drain a three or do something to stop the run. Yeah. Trae Young was hitting 30-footers. He became that villain that we were all talking about. He also became Jeremy's best friend, finding out that he was afraid of birds.
Hashtag birds aren't real.
Hashtag birds aren't real.
Yeah, you know what my prevailing thought from last night was?
Yeah.
Hashtag Hawks aren't real.
Yeah. And then we get into the second half, and Tibbs finally did what I've been asking him to do and not play Alfred Payton and Nerlens Noel. He ended up starting Derrick Rose and Taj Gibson in the second half, and it made a humongous difference. The having that playoff experience with those guys, and Obi played pretty well. The Garden was just calling his name. His mom was crying in the stands. It was just a really cool feeling. Julius Randle played a lot better, not so much in the first half, but the second half. And they held him to 35 points in the second half, and it was just game over. I think the intensity of the crowd really pulled them in. Yeah. And unlike game one, they were able to make the stops that they needed to and then get buckets at the end like they needed to.
Yeah.
So it was a really, really, really fun game to watch. As a Knicks fan, it was my first playoff win in, 2,900 and something days.
Yeah.
So happened to be at actual Madison Square Garden was pretty awesome. It was a different feel this game, I think, than last game. I think in the halftime, whatever Tim said in the halftime worked.
Yeah.
Because they came out ready to play. And as a Knicks fan, I was at the halftime, I was really distraught and was like, no, this is really not happening. We better make some adjustments. And boom, we did it. And let's talk about Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose was absolutely unbelievable last night. He was playing his heart out. He was draining three-pointers. I love this little renaissance that we're getting with Derrick Rose right now. He's nowhere near where he used to be as a player, but he's still got skills and he can still do something for a team in this league.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Eastern Conference needs the Knicks. The Garden was incredible. It was rocking last night. I really haven't heard a game this year that loud on TV. It was even coming through the television. And my thing with the Knicks, I picked them. I really want them to win the series. I want them to go on. It's good for the NBA when there's playoff basketball in the Garden. But last night really didn't make me too excited. I mean, the Hawks did their job. They won one of two, so they flipped home court advantage. Yeah. Now the Knicks have to go to Atlanta. And do you think that John Collins is going to play 15 minutes and go 0 for 2 any of the rest of the series?
That's the problem.
Do you think DeAndre Hunter is going to go 3 for 10? Bogdanovich 8 for 21, Gallinari 2 for 10, Lou Williams 1 for 6. So they were up 14 at the half, and it just completely got to them in the second half. I mean, the Knicks defense got better. That stadium was rocking. They had the crowd behind them. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if that's something you can rely on. They didn't look. We told you it was going to be a day with
just realized that I didn't even have my damn microphone on.
I love how nobody even cared. Like, nobody even said anything.
I think they could probably hear me still, just not really loud.
I mean, you are a loud human being.
Yeah.
As evidenced by, go Chargers, go!
Yeah, exactly. That sucked that we just missed that whole intro like that, but here we go.
It's all good.
I mean, everybody obviously heard it because...
they didn't say anything to us.
Well, because it's the three of us and it could go off the rails at any minute, I think we should start, with some good energy, some good vibes. So I just want to say that the Trailblazers are a far superior team to the Denver Nuggets, and Anthony Davis is a far superior big man to Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, you know what? You know what the great thing about being me is? I can throw Nikola Jokic in 15 games away.
Oh, God, here we go.
15 games away.
The 2K simulation.
From the 2021 NBA champion Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
Don't talk shit
Only in
about my
2K.
Nuggets.
Nope.
Nope. Gonna be real life.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with what Tommy said. I don't think you're gonna see John Collins play that bad. I mean, John Collins was god awful.
Yeah.
I mean, god awful. But at the same time, I think something could be said for they were so bad from the floor because the Knicks do play good defense. They did appear to be much better in the second half. I think Tibbs learned some things. I still think this series goes 7 games.
Yeah, and I've said it's going to go 7 games from the beginning. I think so too.
And then you're just going to be fodder for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I've said it a long time. I didn't think that Knicks could win any playoff series. After this one, I think they could win this one. It's going to be really tough. I think they got to get one of the next 2.
Oh, for sure.
For sure to get this to Game 7.
You want Game 7 to be in MSG.
Absolutely.
They've got to win a game in Atlanta. So.
Yeah.
I don't think they will lose a Game 7 in that environment.
Yeah, and that was finally the win that they've been waiting for a very long time. Winning cures a lot of ills, especially in New York, especially in the Garden like that. As long as James Dolan doesn't get involved and just lets it happen, we're pretty good.
I mean, the Knicks are gonna...
I'm really, really happy that, we were able to get that win last night because, it just didn't look great. And all of a sudden, then they started playing. And I really hope Tibbs figures it out and says, you know what, let's just start Derrick Rose, let's just start Taj Gibson, and let's work those guys into a second rotation as opposed to, because the rotations have been really weird. And so when they're making those runs and they get stopped and then they get in behind and Atlanta can run off 7 or 8 points in a row with that second team or that first team, and it really was a matter of adjustments, and that crowd has a lot to do with it. To do with it. I mean, Atlanta's they're very good at home, so it's going to be tough to beat them.
And there's going to be some adjustment because Tibbs teams are notorious. They play hard, and in the NBA, teams don't play hard during the regular season. That's why it looks completely different. People talk about playoff basketball being completely different because teams take it easy during the regular season, and Tibbs teams don't do that. So they get high seeds, they look good, and then you get to the playoffs, and all these teams that you've been playing all year, like how the Knicks were 3-0 against the Hawks, they turn it up a notch.
Yeah.
So the Knicks have to find that, okay, we always play hard, but we got to find an extra gear to get to stay ahead of these teams that their superstars are really going to turn it on in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
So you're talking about all the things that are different in the playoffs?
Yeah.
You know what wasn't different last night?
What's that?
Philadelphia smoking Washington like a honey ham.
Oh, man. Yeah, we called this yesterday. Basically, we thought this was going to be an absolute blowout anyways. We thought that Philly is going to sweep this series. I think that Washington might take Game 4 just to have that gentleman's sweep that normally happens. But I don't, at this point, after watching last night, I don't think that's going to be possible.
Well, you know what? I'm just really glad that some fans saw that Russell Westbrook was really hungry on his way out of the arena and decided to dump popcorn on his head. I'm going to let the two of you talk about this, and then I'm going to say aggressively obscene things.
Yeah.
Proceed.
I don't have much to say except for free Brad Beal. I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
Kid's a stud, plays hard, he's loyal. Got to get him out of there, get him to a new team. Russ, I kept seeing some things that he should have gone full Ron Artest and go after this 22-year-old throwing some popcorn at you.
Like, it's not like he threw a brick. Yeah. It was popcorn. I get it. It's disrespectful. And I know that it's a high intent. Russell's a high-intensity guy. Yeah. He was upset, blah, blah, blah. He comes through. That's so, you don't want to have that kind of situation. But it's something that I think he needs to just kind of be a bigger man about. But it goes into a further conversation, which they were all talking about this morning, about what kind of level the fans have towards these guys. We see it a lot. Every year there's some sort of incident involving a fan and a player on the court, or a fan and a player going off the court. And a lot of the players in the league are starting to say, what are you doing to protect us? You know, I guess the conversation was, this time it was popcorn. What if it's something else next time? And I just, you know, there's certain things you got to understand. These guys are paying to be at the game, to come see you. So they have a level of certainty. You know, as long as you're not calling out somebody's family, calling them racial epithet or anything like that, I see it's not too bad if they're just saying, oh, you suck. You know, that kind of thing has happened for years and years and years, and I don't feel that's a big deal.
Yeah, we do that on this show every day.
Yeah, but people getting like on the court near somebody, calling their family something, calling these kind of things, we don't need that. And there needs to be a little bit more of a security thing. But I think the best thing the NBA can just do is find out who it was and take their season tickets away from them.
They found out who it was.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And the thing is, they can just take away, if he is a season ticket holder, then just take away his season tickets, and just kind of, you have to have a punishment for these guys when they do that, so that it deters fans from doing something else, because they don't want to get rid of their season tickets if they're a fan like that because they did something similar to this. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I can't wait to hear what Jeremy has to say about this.
You good?
I'm great.
I pride myself on not going full Skip Bayless, full lunatic very often.
Yeah.
I'm gonna right here. I'm gonna read his quote. Because this is one of the most definitively stupid things I've ever heard in my life. To be completely honest, this shit's getting out of hand, especially for me. The amount of disrespect, the amount of fans just doing whatever the fuck they want to do, it's just out of pocket. There are certain things that cross the line. Any other setting, a guy were to come up to me on the street, pour popcorn on my head, you know what happens. In these arenas, you got to start protecting the players. We'll see what the NBA does. Okay, let me compartmentalize this. First of all, Russ, you're a 6'1", 190-pound dude, so don't act like you're John Bones Jones. Cool your shit. You had 7 people holding you back from a kid that looked like he weighed about $140. So before you try to be Mr. Hardass, just understand that standing next to me, you'd look like a small child. So there's that. That's one. 2, protecting the players. He poured fucking popcorn on you. Like, calm your shit. Do I understand why it irritated you? 100%.
Yeah.
But protect the players like he took a shot at you, you fucking moron? That's the most irrelevant, ridiculous. This is trended on Twitter now for a full day.
Yeah.
That's absurd. That's 100% absurd. You got popcorn thrown at you. You know who else has had that done? A shitload of players over there.
Terrell Owens threw it on himself.
Yep, he did.
Get your popcorn ready.
But here's where I'm going to go full Skip Bayless. You want to know why I think fans feel like they can do anything? They can say anything? Because the players feel like they can say anything. The players like to use their platform, and this has nothing to do with what they're saying. I could care less. The players all feel like I can use this platform to increase my agenda. Kyrie Irving comes out and says what he said about Boston. I'm not going to give that the time of day in a watch shop because I'm not from Boston and I don't have to. You don't see how these things are intertwined with each other? You really don't see how these things are intertwined with each other. You try to make this feel like we're all in this together, and you start putting your political stances on the court and all this shit. You don't think there are people that are just completely fed up with that want to just watch a basketball game? And then you walk through the tunnel limping out after you've been god awful. And you're surprised that a fan would do something like that? Really? That's surprising to you. And maybe that's a weird take, but it's the number one thing I thought of last night. Is you're doing this to yourselves. You're 100% doing this to yourselves. And the amount of interaction that happens between players and fans, if you'd stop acknowledging it, it would stop happening.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, the kid that decided to do this probably thought, hey, I bet I could throw popcorn on Russell Westbrook, and I bet I'll be on SportsCenter.
Yeah.
And he was.
Yeah.
And it worked. Because LeBron James decides to get into it with a fan that starts talking about what the... If you didn't know that fans yell obscene things at players, you've obviously never been in a fucking stadium.
Yeah, it's pretty...
I mean, that's one of those problems. I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm saying there's absolutely no shot for you to fix it.
Yeah.
I love Stephen Towle's comment that they should offer him a Jiffy Pop sponsorship. I mean, that's what you got to do. Just flip it to your advantage. I mean, get a couple
100%.
commercials, get a bag off of it, flip it to your advantage. And the only thing I'll say on that before we get on to the last game from last night is, these fans, they do pay. They do have a certain amount of access from that. I don't think they should be throwing things on the players because they're not in the players' shoes. They haven't reached that level of competitive that gets you to the NBA, and they've never been a competitor that's really struggling for something, has a terrible game, already feels like the world's collapsing because they
Russell
can't get to the
Westbrook
playoffs.
doesn't feel that way.
I mean, he's a competitor.
Not really.
He hates losing more than most players I know.
That's weird because he does it a lot.
Well, I know, but
doesn't
That'd
mean
be
that-
like me saying I hate cheeseburgers. Then why do I keep
But
fucking
that
eating
doesn't have anything to do with his wanting to win.
I
He is-
disagree with you.
There's so many NBA players that don't give a shit about losing, and you can tell on
He's
their
one of them.
face.
Yeah, you're right. He's
There's
one of them.
no way.
He
He's one of the
plays
biggest
hard
competitors
every
out there.
single time he gets on the court.
He'll be
Let me
on
ask you a
shit
question.
teams and get
This has
triple
nothing
doubles.
Has
to
he
do-
ever been on a shit team?
The Wizards aren't a great team. I mean, the Rockets haven't been great the past couple years. And he still plays his heart out. 82 games a year. He's an Iron Man. He doesn't miss games.
Yeah.
He's the ultimate competitor in my eyes. But regardless of any of that, regardless of who the player is, it would suck if you were trying, getting knocked out of the playoffs, having a really bad game personally, and then someone's throwing some shit at you while you're limping off the court. Somebody's throwing popcorn in your face. And until you're in that situation, you really don't know how you would react. I'd probably cuss a 22-year-old kid out as well. So,
And Jonathan Welch just said exactly where I was headed. I'm going to read his verbatim because I don't know that I can say it any better.
Okay.
People haven't been to live events in 15 months. A, stupid people are relearning how to be in society. B, they're automatically entitled because they spent money on a ticket. I could not say that any better.
I don't feel like they're entitled just
No,
to throw.
in their own head. He's not talking about. He's not saying you get an entitlement. In your own head, they think I paid for my ticket. I can do what I want to.
Yeah, and that's a 100% correct.
And here's the thing: if Russell Westbrook hadn't freaked out, nobody would know this.
Yeah,
nobody. And Russell, and to your point of Russ is such a competitor and shit like that, you do realize this is all we're going to talk about with this series. That's it. Well, because Russ had to show his ass knowing there are 7 security guys around him. They're not going to let you to this guy. That was all theater. Every bit of it was theater. Well, you don't want to get to him. You don't want to get to him.
He's approached people before at games.
Has he ever hit one?
No.
Because the guys, did he ever hit one?
Well,
because what I saw last night was, I want to get to him because I'm going to whip his ass. Then you get to the press conference and go, if you did that to me on the street, you know what would happen. I got news for you, Russ. If I did it on the street, I'd kick you right in your jaw. So, but before you act like Mr. Hardass, I'm going to need you to calm down just a hair. Don't act like you're some Billy Badass, because this is not the first time this has happened. There have been multiple opportunities for Russ to be a tough guy. He's not. He's not. You can act like one all you want to. You're not.
I think
it's real easy to say that when you're looking at a kid that was 5'9", weighed about $140.
Right. I mean, I get that part of it, but he is pissed off, and I don't think by any means he was trying to get into the stands. I just think he wanted to.
I don't think he
confront the guy.
Then what's he doing?
He's
being held back by 7 dudes. What are you trying to do? You want
They're
to
trying to get him into the locker room.
But why?
And
all he has to do is walk forward.
Because he just wants to confront the person and talk to him.
Say,
and be like,
hey,
why?
Why? So he can say, hey, I'm a man at the end of
popcorn
the
thrown on him.
Yeah. So he can say,
what's
hey,
your point?
look.
Okay, you are one of the most, I would say, you have a little bit of an anger streak to you as well.
Not
if you
really.
come off a court and someone throws popcorn on, if you're a professional athlete, you would have walked right past it.
If someone threw
I'm
popcorn
a
at you
grown
walking
man
out of
that's
here.
been spit on and didn't
Well,
react to
I
it.
know, but
you know why? Because I look at the person doing it, and if you're Russell Westbrook, I'm Russell Westbrook. Who's that guy?
Yeah.
Who gives a rat's ass?
I can see where you're coming from, but I just think in the competitive moment he reacted to something that happened, and he was pissed off. And again, I disagree. Russell is a freaking fantastic competitor. He plays his heart out every single game. Is he someone that's going to win a ton of games with style of play he wins? No, but he does try.
It's not for lack of effort.
From tip to F.
He's a fake tough guy. That's exactly what he is. He's a fake tough guy. He's a fake competitor.
Yeah.
Because I got news for you. You said he's been on bad teams. This is the worst team he's
Not
ever been on.
bad teams. It's just that
Oklahoma
no
City
matter
team
what
was
happened,
bad that he actually took to the playoffs the year he won. Who was on that team?
Serge Ibaka was on that team.
Okay.
And they didn't win shit, by the way.
I mean,
He's never been in the first round by himself.
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook's never gotten out of the first round without.
I know, but you're
he's
talking
not that
about a
type
team
of
with
player.
Serge Ibaka as your second best player, and he still made the playoffs with them.
Serge Ibaka was a borderline all-star for several years.
Okay.
Had he not been in Oklahoma City, probably would have been an all-star because he never shot.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good player.
Like
yeah, he's a pretty good player, but a pretty good player. He was, and then you have Russell Wilson. I do that all the time. Russell Westbrook.
You've infected Tank because now he does it all the time.
But yeah, I don't know.
This is not a hatred of Westbrook. That's not my point. What I'm trying to say is, we're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
All right. Fans are gonna say shit. When does this become an issue? When you make it an issue. If Russell Westbrook, if that happens and Russell just walks through the tunnel, are we talking about this today?
No,
we're not.
Well, if he would,
you know what that is to me? You're in the playoffs. This is a Wizards team that had a great run to get into the playoffs because they were hot garbage for 3/4 of the season. Now the only narrative of this playoff run is going to be, hey, remember when Russell Westbrook got popcorn poured on him?
I don't think that.
Because that's who 100%. What else are you going to talk about? What else are you going to talk about?
Oh, you're
they're
talking
going to
about
get run out for a game.
just a series.
I'm talking about this playoff run for the Wizards.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
Yeah, the only thing you're going to talk about is, hey, remember when Russell Westbrook got popcorn poured on him? Because somehow he always becomes the narrative. Always. And that's why nobody wants to play with him.
Yeah.
Bradley Beal, if you gave Bradley Beal a one-way ticket to fucking Siberia right now, he'd take it.
Oh, he would be out.
100%. I want away from him. This is the reason that he's playing for his third team in 4 years.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to deal with the guy. Because this is, in my opinion, as a guy that played a lot of team sports in my life, this is a very me first kind of thing. Oh, I'm hurt. I played like shit and I'm hurt and I'm being carried to the locker room. And this is the thing that really pissed me off. Oh, I'm being carried to the locker room because I can't play anymore. But I'm ready to fight this motherfucker in the first row.
Yeah.
Okay. Those two things really don't play to me. You're so hurt that you can't play anymore, but you want to fight some dude in the front row. What does that scream to you?
Yeah. I mean,
Hashtag card carrying captain of the team gets mine. Russell Westbrook is the all-time GM of that team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guess we'll agree to disagree on that one.
I hate Russell Westbrook with a passion. And the fact that became a story. All right, I'll go one step further. How many players in the NBA would that have become a story with? Stars.
Every single one.
You're drunk. You're drunk as hell.
You're saying
Things
that
get thrown at
any player
players
that
all
was
the time.
going off the court had popcorn
That had
thrown on
popcorn thrown
he
on him,
reacted
going
that
off
way,
with an
it wouldn't
injury.
be a big deal.
If he tried to get through 9 security
They
guards,
would have tried to go through 9 security guards, or 7 or however. I thought there were 7.
I feel like it would make Sports Center.
No, you're missing my point. What I'm saying is, how many other superstar players would do that? You're getting your absolute lunchbox handed to you on national television. You're going out with an injury because, I'm too hurt. I'm too hurt to play anymore. I can't play no more.
I could see a lot of players.
I can't. Name them.
You don't think
Name me one. Name me one player.
I'm sorry. Maybe I'm misconstruing the question. Are you saying that most players wouldn't react the way that Russell Westbrook did? Or
that's exactly
that
what
they
I'm
would
saying.
have just, I don't know.
If LeBron James is getting his, and I hate LeBron with an undying passion, but LeBron's getting his lunchbox eaten on national television and somebody throws popcorn on him, I guarantee he's not going to try to fight him in the front row.
He's not going to try to fight him, but he's going to stop and say, hey, get that dude thrown out. Hey, tell him
And
he
that's
can't
fine.
do that.
If that's what he had done, that's fine.
Would you have
You
said-
made a
Bro-
scene and tried to go through 7 security
He was
guards.
just heated
So
in the
it's not
moment.
the thing
but
that if he would have just walked through and then talked about it in the post-game
walked-
conference,
So
you would have been
fine.
fine.
You don't mind what he
Fine.
did. You care
No, I
about
care-
how he did it. Because you said you don't care if another player pointed out and said, hey, get that guy. He can't
The guy should be
disrespect you
ejected
like
out of the arena. There's no doubt about that.
You're
Right.
more talking about
taking his season tickets away and
his
partying at the
overreaction
arena.
of him trying to get through the crowd is your biggest problem, and
There you go.
I can understand that.
I'm
part of
saying you're getting your shit pushed in on national television
Yeah.
for the second night in 3 nights. And now you're too hurt to play, and yet you're healthy enough to try to fight some random guy in the front row.
I don't think he was ever going to fight
Piss
him,
off.
but-
Okay, then what's he going to do? I see, I've heard this.
Go say, hey, you can't disrespect me. At the end of the day, we're not robots out here. You're paying tickets to see we're
He's
humans.
never going to get up there.
Well,
Never.
I know that.
That's I know, but he's done that before, like that, and you don't.
He's never got.
You're
Do
not.
you realize how high this guy was?
You're not thinking about that when you're a competitor in
And that's
that
my point.
moment,
And that's what you just said is my point.
and you're already pissed off. You're hurting. You're limping, and it's not like he gets hurt all the time and limps off the court all the time. He's an Iron Man. He plays
That's
82 games a year.
That's not even kind of true.
What? Go back and look at how many
I'm not
games
saying he
he's
doesn't
played.
play. You just said he doesn't limp off. He does it all the time.
Well,
All
I
the time. He
don't
did it in
recall.
Houston constantly. This is a guy that I played in
Well, he
DFS a
plays
lot
hard
because
as
he was a cheat code.
Yeah, because he gets 15 rebounds a game because he's down there banging with the big guys, rebounding, playing defense.
He's not banging with
you don't get 15 rebounds not getting up over big guys and box.
100% you do.
Not 15 rebounds a game as a point guard.
He doesn't get 15 rebounds a game. He's right around 10.
Okay, that's still
he's a good rebounding point guard.
He's the best rebounding guard we've seen in a really long time.
He should be banged up because he plays so hard. He should.
And I'm telling you, as somebody that's coached a lot of basketball, played a lot of basketball, there's a very simple reason why. Watch his teams play. On a rebound, the team bails out because he's not a great outlet point guard. He's not a great distributor. He can do one thing. That's it. He has one speed. I can go real fast, and I can outrun you to the basket. That's all Russell Westbrook does. There's a reason guys don't want to play with him because he's a point guard that can't facilitate. And what I'm saying is this whole little event is Russell Westbrook in a nutshell. Because he goes to the press conference and all he wants to talk about is somebody getting popcorn poured on him. Doesn't talk about Bradley Beal and how Bradley Beal picked up his slack for being just a complete bum. Doesn't talk about any of the good things with the Wizards, none of the things that we had to. I got popcorn poured on me and I'm pissed about it. And I'll tell you, as a coach, I'd go to you and go, way to make it all about you. Good job. I mean, in fairness, at least you took the fact off your team got absolutely annihilated.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you that.
Nothing better
you
to
took
talk
the
about.
heat off of us for getting just destroyed.
Yeah.
But that's a very me first play.
Yeah.
Stephen Tao, I scored 6 points on Stephen Curry, so need to get that right. He said 4.
Yeah.
I scored 6. Don't ask me how many Steph scored on me. He didn't score them all on me, in fairness.
Want to get to this last game from last night?
Yes. The Memphis Grizzlies. What was your. All right. I'm curious if you saw this game the same way I did. Utah Jazz win 141-129 last night against the Memphis Grizzlies and Ja Morant. What was your takeaway from this game?
I thought that Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert played really, really, really well. And Donovan Mitchell makes a big difference on their team.
He's everything. Yeah. He's the difference.
But I think Ja Morant is a star in the making.
He's an absolute star. But when you score 47 and Dylan Brooks is 10 of 14, your team shoots 54% overall, and you still are pretty much getting blown out the whole game. It's tough.
Well,
but
Dylan Brooks
Ja
also
did everything he could.
got 2 quick fouls. He was out of the game like that.
Yeah,
and that makes a huge
still
difference.
Scored 23.
Yeah, but that was back. When they're playing up, they got down early, and a lot of that had to do with Dylan Brooks getting 2 fouls like in the first 2 minutes of the game.
Ooh, you're both like butting right up to what my takeaway was. Ja Morant's the player that you want Russell Westbrook to be. He is. Ja Morant is a superstar in this league. And if they can put players around him, which currently, I'm going to be really honest with you, this team around him is disgustingly bad. Dylan Brooks is one of the worst defenders I've ever seen in my life. I mean, on a scale of 1 to bad defender, he's a fucking Mach 1 airplane. He is just brutally bad.
Yeah, he's
had some games.
He's a great scorer. There's a lot of guys around him that can score.
They make him guard the best wing on every team.
He's disgustingly bad.
Here's what their problem is right here, and I'll tell you the plus minus for their fucking bench. Grayson Allen was minus 23. Bain was minus 14 and Melton was minus 16. When they don't have depth.
Nope.
Once their starters come off the floor, their starters are all in positive except for Ja Morant, who was minus 6.
Grayson Allen was tripping. You know what I'm saying? Tripping because he stuck his foot out and he tripped.
But this team's just not deep enough to do what they need to do, I think, and that proves the whole fact. It's disgusting.
Hold on,
the difference.
I got to go backwards. You were talking about Dylan Brooks. I was talking about Desmond Bain. I said Dylan Brooks because I heard it out of
I was about to say, I think Dylan Brooks is
he's still not a great defender, but he's better than Desmond Bain couldn't defend anybody sitting at this table.
Right, and it was obvious. He had to play 24 minutes, and that's not something that you want.
He can usually score. He didn't do that. And he's usually a pretty good shooter, too.
Yeah.
And there's just no depth. I mean, it's Ja and a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
Conversely, I look at Utah and go, who had a great night last night? Who on that team had a great night?
I'm not sure they had a great.
I mean,
Nobody. That's my point.
In their role or overall? Because in their
everybody
role,
did their role to a T.
Joe Ingles was 4 for 4, 3 for 3 from 3.
Yeah, and that's the thing about.
And that's I mean,
That's his role.
he was way more efficient than usual.
Yeah.
That's his role.
Yeah, that's his
This
role.
is what Utah looks like when everything clicks on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Because I've laughed for an extended period of time about people that say, "Oh, Donovan Mitchell is Utah goes as he goes." No, they don't.
No, but he helps them do what they do.
He's that third piece.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he's the third most important player on the team. That's not my point. When he's not there, Gobert has to slide into the second scorer's role.
Right.
And that's not good for them. What's great is when Rudy can just be the defender, the cleanup guy, just be really freaking big.
And Donovan can be the
but
ball
not
handler.
have to initiate any offense.
Yeah.
Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell doing different things, initiating the offenses when this team works swimming.
I mean, look, they had 7 guys score 14 or more points.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, and I mean,
That's who
obviously
they
they
are.
scored 141. This is what they can do. They don't need a superstar player. They just have a lot of really good players that know their role and they play that role to the best of their abilities.
Yeah.
This series could possibly be, if this is how it goes, this is going to be 4 in a row for Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And
when they shoot like that, nobody's beating.
yeah, you can't. And they're so good. They're so good at three. I mean, Christ on a cracker. What did they shoot? Like
48%.
48% from 3-point
19 of
range.
39.
Yeah.
They're so balanced, but they need all those pieces healthy to do.
And what it
to
is
have
they
that
know what
balanced attack.
because they have the way to stretch out the floor because of their. And then if you try to cheat out towards the 3-point line, then Rudy just gets his. Then they just do a pick and roll, throw it up in the air, and Rudy just go gets it.
Yeah.
You know.
And when Donovan's not playing, Jordan Clarkson has to be the second team ball handler and scorer.
Yeah.
So when Conley goes to the bench and Donovan can take over ball handling, he doesn't have to worry as much about scoring. He can get it to Clarkson and Ingles and some of these guys and run their offense. And I think they need him to be able to be competitive. But once he's in there, they have such a balanced attack. You can't key in on one guy. And nobody wants to see Utah and a team that plays together really well like the Warriors did when they were at their best, when they had everybody just all in sync on offense and defense. That's how the Jazz play. They don't have that talent, but they play really well together.
I agree. The best way I can quantify Utah is Mike Conley is the transmission, Donovan Mitchell is the engine, Rudy Gobert is the body of the car, and everybody else are seats and radios and shit like that.
Yeah.
They're just accessories.
And they just sit there and they do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that any car with a really good transmission, really good engine, really good body is probably a reasonably nice car. You get into super high end when you have leather seats and all kinds of other shit. The onboard, and that's Utah.
Yeah.
Because when Royce O'Neal and Bojan Bogdanovic and Jordan Clarkson play like they did last night, they're going to be really hard to beat.
Right.
Really, really hard to beat.
Yeah, that's a really tough team. And and you know what they kind of remind me of just a little bit? They remind me of the Pistons teams that, you know, the ones that finally beat the Lakers, because they just have, everybody has their role and there's no true superstar. I mean, I think Donovan Mitchell is about as superstar as you get, but most people don't consider him one of the top, what do you say, probably 10 players in the league.
Donovan?
Yeah. I mean, he's close. He's right on the backside. So I feel like this is a kind of team very similar to those Pistons teams, and they did some damage.
Yeah.
So.
And a team that balanced needs a shot maker. That's what Donovan is.
Yeah.
They need somebody at the end of the game to hit the big shots. Not as much in this series, it won't come up, but the next round it'll be really important that he's healthy.
I agree. I just look at this Utah team, and this is kind of what I was trying to get across yesterday when we were talking about the Suns.
Yeah.
This team's better than the Suns.
Yeah.
And I look at this with the Lakers and just go, you can't shoot with them. You'd have to have them have 4 bad shooting nights for LA to beat them.
Right.
It's going to be tough for sure.
And I just don't see it happening. I have to talk about this. We talked about this on the ESPN Radio show. Can be found on the iHeartRadio app. Just search The Sports Take with Jeremy Greene, 3 o'clock every weekday afternoon with Mr. Spencer and myself. I hate Bryson DeChambeau with every fiber of my soul. I can't help how much I hate Bryson DeChambeau. Did you see the Twitter back and forth yesterday?
It was so
Tom
bad.
was so savage.
Oh,
yesterday.
well, first of all, I never thought you could make me like Tom Brady, but I found a way.
Right. And I hate it. I hate that I feel this way, but I love it.
I hate that I loved it, and I really do. Brady tweets out something to the effect of
oh, he killed it.
It was the meme of Brooks Koepka rolling his eyes and DeChambeau rolling past, and then it just turns into this whole thing.
There's like the funny when you and your friend are going back and forth, and then there's the one that like stings a little on the inside.
Yeah.
Like Aaron laughed at first and then was like, oh, they did kick a field goal when we were down 7. Damn it, Tom. While you were winning a Super Bowl.
He's saying 2 like professional athletes or something like that against a scientist and a Jeopardy host.
Oh, God. It was so good. It was so good.
Oh my God, it was just so bad. And
what was it that DeChambeau said though to Tom?
Oh, DeChambeau put up the worst Photoshop picture I've ever seen that said, after we beat you and Phil, you'll be more deflated than those footballs were. And you see this obviously Photoshopped image in Tom's hand.
You can tell Bryson just Googled how to Photoshop a football.
Yeah. Bryson DeChambeau is the kid that got made fun of in high school, got randomly hot, and now they think they're a supermodel.
yeah.
That's Bryson DeChambeau in a nutshell. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's nice that I'm living rent free in your head. Oh, God.
But he doesn't have the self-confidence because he knows he did it on the roids.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when he said I'm living rent-free in your head, Brooksy, you do realize Brooks Koepka was #1 in the world for a year.
Yeah.
He was #1 in the world for 47 weeks.
He's got 4 majors.
Yeah. Bryson DeChambeau has 8 wins total in his life. And I got news for you. He's one staunch turn of the rules committee, to that being all he has.
Brooks is like, I live rent-free everywhere because I pay for everything up front because I have a lot of checks from this golfing thing.
Yeah, because this golf thing is working out pretty nicely for me.
Yeah.
But we do need to talk about the match. Going to have Bryson DeChambeau and Aaron Rodgers against Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady.
They did it wrong.
I agree with you.
Why? I'm so. Okay, sorry. Woof, that was really weird. This was a perfect opportunity to have Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka against each other, and it would get the most ratings I would ever see. You would ever see. I'm telling you, it would be through the roof.
That's what a lot of people said, but you see what Phil said back to that? So he got into it a little bit. He said, I would back out of this situation right now. Seems like you guys got a lot going on, but they want the current PGA champ to be in the match. Shout out, Phil.
Wow. God bless. That's awesome right there.
Lefty with the left hook out of nowhere.
Oh, that even gets 2. Just
Wow, winning.
I do like. I'm learning to like Phil Mickelson more and more and more. Lauren said, her mom said, who's the guy in the middle? He's got a dirty mouth. I'm a stand-up comedian. It's really all right. I really, outside of being funny, I don't have anything else. I mean, I say bad words a lot.
She said you got a purty little mouth.
Purdy, I don't know about that. Purdy and dirty do rhyme, depending on what state you're from. I'm not going to lie. I thoroughly enjoyed the little back and forth.
It's something, it's funny because I think you don't think of this in such a gentleman's game, so to speak. You know
And
what I mean?
Adam Black, by the way, I need to comment on this because Adam Black is the resident super golf fan, and I do have to give him credit for what he said here. Phil brings in the casual fan. Casual fans don't know who Brooks is.
Yeah.
You're using casual wrong. You're using the non-golf fan. And I totally agree because this is a charity event.
Yeah.
So I agree that they did the match wrong.
Yeah.
I think you were the one that just said that.
Yeah.
I agree by putting Bryson DeChambeau in it.
Yeah.
Because Bryson DeChambeau has about as much personality as my coffee cup does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, would you like to watch my coffee cup hit golf balls for 4 hours?
Yeah.
And there's probably
that's how I feel about
there's
Bryson.
Does
probably
Aaron and Bryson know each other? Is this kind of something that, or are they
they're
kind of buddies? Because I don't get it. It's just going to be, this is for charity and this is for really an exhibition. And then Bryson DeChambeau is going to be out there like measuring the blade of grass, finding out when the last mow job was, doing some sort of stupid scientific fact on it, like, oh, well, the wind comes through here and it's going to take 9 years to do it. And they're going to be like, brother, come on, man. Let's just hit the damn ball.
Hit the damn ball.
Hit the ball.
So what Adam Black said, like, there's going to be some NFL fans that are probably tuning into this that haven't tuned into golf since the 90s, and they're going to be like, oh, Phil, I know that guy.
Yeah.
And they're going to get that casual fan. But my granddad did say, did you notice that Phil outdrove DeChambeau on 16, 366-yard drive
Yeah.
as a 50-year-old man?
Yeah.
I'm learning to love Phil more and more.
He was
Anybody
booming
that
out there.
beats Bryson DeChambeau,
Yeah.
I'm a fan of.
He looked the best I had ever seen him. Phil was tan. He looked, like
Phil's completely redone his body over the last 18 months.
He's redone his body and he's redone his mind. Mind and body.
Oh, that was very zen.
Mind and
body. That was very zen of you.
See, Brian's still, our new Get Rich betting show, he's still in that mindset.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm not going to teach you how to, I'm not going to give you money. I'm going to teach you how to make money.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Jeremy's been throwing it out of airplanes for the last.
Jeremy's like 17-1 over the last 18. Bro, like that's
dollar bill. Y'all.
Jeremy's on fire.
3-0 last night against the spread.
Yeah.
And I got he totally screwed in the over/under of Philadelphia, Washington.
Yeah, it was way over at halftime, and then Washington scored 38 points.
I was easily on a course to cover that midway through the fourth quarter. And then Washington stopped playing. And my happy ticket that said over 229.5 went.
Yeah.
Another reason that I hate Russell Westbrook. What I was saying about the match, though, getting back on the actual
that's what we try to do here.
I agree with Phil being in it. Phil should be in it. It's Bryson DeChambeau that I have a problem with.
Who would you
he has
like?
No personality whatsoever.
Who would you like instead?
You're going to tell me I'm crazy on this, and I'm saying this for a reason. I would say Justin Thomas. He was the commentator in the last one. And so they had him out there being funny and doing shit like that. So the people that watch this have already got a bit of an ingrained knowledge of Justin Thomas.
It's like
plus he's actually got a personality.
It's like the UFC fight when the number one contender sits ringside, so the whoever wins calls him into the ring. Gives a little preview.
Yeah.
Bryson DeChambeau has the personality of a wet napkin, and I just really don't. There's nothing about that lights my fire. Now, to what several of you said in the comments, I really hope they pair them at the U.S. Open.
Oh my God.
Please, USGA, I don't ask for much.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm saying this directly to Adam Black because he's the one that's told me repeatedly Bryson DeChambeau is going to win the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
After yesterday and Bryson DeChambeau's smart-ass mouth, I have never been more convinced that the USGA is going to concoct something just demonic at Torrey Pines for Bryson DeChambeau. Because the golf purists are going to see that, and they're going to laugh at Brooks because Brooks is steering into the skid if he got caught on camera rolling his eyes. Because most people hate Bryson DeChambeau. Most people in the golf world just cannot stand him. So I think there's going to be a lot of, hey, Brooks, or Bryson. Yeah, pull that driver out again there, Puddin'. Yeah. Pull that driver out again there, Puddin'.
Try to get it around this bend right here. Like
the USGA has they have a history of people that try to outsmart the game. They reel them back in. They were the ones that started Tiger Proofing.
Tiger Proofing, yep, I remember it.
Well, it never worked on Tiger. It will work on Bryson DeChambeau. You mark my words, it will work.
They've already started to do a bit of that.
They did it last week. They did it last week in the PGA.
Made it the longest course in the history.
And it's not even the longest. The longest actually plays into what Bryson does. They started penalizing you for doing aggressive things. That's how he wound up in another freaking fairway or whatever he did. They
don't want to make it so if you can drive it over this tree, you can get closer to the green and stuff like that. They want to make that kind of not part of the game. It is what it is.
Correct. You're live in the Wicked Weed Studios. We're brought to you, as always, by Wicked Weed Brewing. WickedWeedBrewing.com. Drink different. I'm Jeremy Greene. This is Brian Haynes and Tommy Bradley. And one of the things we wanted to talk about today was busts. And what constitutes a bust? And this comes from Kwame Brown, who went on his podcast and basically just roasted everyone. And this is Tommy's topic, so I'll let him take the lead on this.
Yeah, just to give a quick rundown if anyone doesn't know who he is. He was the first overall pick in the 2001 draft as an 18-year-old kid out of high school. He went to the Wizards. He basically was drafted by the starting shooting guard, which was an aging Michael Jordan. It wasn't the strongest draft class. You know, he got picked over Tyson Chandler, Eddie Curry, Jason Richardson, and Paul Gasol was number 4. We talked about that this morning. But he didn't get a lot of playing time that first year, and he was blamed for a lot of the failures of the team. Like, Michael Jordan was really on him, thinking that he should be, you know, he's the number 1 pick. He should carry this team. Like, you know, Michael was still the competitor, but didn't have what he had to be able to carry a team. So a lot of that fell on Kwame, and, you know, it would be difficult to be 18 and your idol be, you know, coming down on you all the time. So anyways, he was called, you know, one of the biggest busts for the past 20 years. I mean, people were calling him a scrub like Stephen A. He was basically the poster child for not living up to potential. Yeah. And people would say things like, oh, he's bad, but he's no Kwame Brown. Like, he was really the personification of a bust. So he never did interviews, never said anything for about 20 years. And then he finally got fed up and started defending himself. And he started the Kwame Brown Bust Life YouTube channel, which is fantastic. He started his own merch. But then he started counteracting these narratives, and he's been killing everyone in sports media.
Yeah, he has.
Everyone's scared of him. They're terrified because not only has he been like hilarious and smart about the things that he's been saying and going at these hypocrisies in the media, but you know, after years of making him a punchline and giving that perception that he was a miserable, washed-out guy, he played in the league for 13 years. He made $64 million, which with inflation, that's about $81.5 million today. So, you know, he took care of his family. He changed his family for generations, you know, played in the league for 13 years. So there's a couple of things on this topic that I think everybody might not be thinking about, a couple of variables about it. I think people aren't quite thinking about. But first off, I just want to ask both of you, what constitutes a bust in your mind? What would be the definition?
Kwame Brown. Kwame Brown's the definition of a bust.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. See, because you're and I love your argument in this. I really do. He made $64 million. He provided for his family. All of those things, that's all well and good. That's fine. You're still a bust on the field.
You were number 1 pick.
On the whatever the case may be. Pro Basketball Reference does this. They have this little chart, and it's called a similarity score of what your career in terms of win shares. They relate it to another player who had the same kind of career arc as you. Would you like to know whose career arcs were similar to Kwame Brown? Shandon Anderson, Charlie Villanueva, James Jones, Stromile Swift, and Andre Blanche. That's bust.
Andre Blanche from Syracuse. I think that when you talk about busts, and I think there's a lot of things that need to go into consideration with that, depending on, for example, and if you're the number 1 pick, that automatically amounts you to be someone special. If you're the number 1 pick in your draft of your sport, you should be a superstar or at least an all-star or at least go to playoffs. And I think that's what the bust label comes from. I do think that playing 13 years in the league and doing all that stuff, I think that matters in these aspects. But I think the more about it is where you're drafted and what's going on. There's certain considerations, yes, that maybe wasn't. I look at look at Anthony Bennett. That was a number 1 overall pick. That was absolutely horrendous and terrible recently.
And he only stayed in the league a couple of years.
He got fat and he was out.
Never played good, never was a role player.
So it's like, I think there's an expectation, and I think that's kind of what happened with, like, for example, a guy like Ryan Leaf, who actually, and that's what I'll give Kwame Brown for. At least he stayed around and was able to stick around in the league and be a bench player and earn some money. A lot of these guys that are picked that high and they do waffle out, they're gone and you never hear from them again. Jamarcus Russell, all these kind of guys, they either find a way to get them because they're such big busts, it gets in their head and they're gone. Yeah. I think that's something to be said about Kwame. But at the same time, when you're drafted number 1, and he was an 18-year-old kid, and it wasn't too far after that they got rid of that rule, I think, right? Yeah. Just a couple years later. But maybe that's the reason they did it. But
part of it. He talked about that.
He talked about how, like, you're getting drafted by your idol, and then every single day in practice, he's just busting your chops and killing you. And it could be, not everybody's Michael Jordan. He was a different kind of fella. I think maybe if Kwame, I don't know, if Kwame Brown's drafted by somebody else and it's not Michael Jordan, they're killing him every single day.
There's so many variables that go into it.
There's a situation where he might be, maybe he would have developed into a better player than he was.
That helps him and mentors him. But does it change your perception, like who they were picked in front of? Because that was not that great of a draft. And I mean, in the top 5, there wasn't any like home run Hall of Famers.
Paul
I mean, Paul Gasol was good, but people, really didn't know, and he had to develop for a little bit. And then, so you look at somebody like Darko Milicic. He was a number 2 pick, not number 1 pick, but he was picked ahead of Melo, D-Wade, and Bosh.
And that was the year because they had all those wing players. They didn't need a wing player. They had Tayshaun Prince. They had
Is Marvin Williams a bust in your mind?
No.
He was picked ahead of Chris Paul, Deron Williams, and
I don't really care who you were picked in front of. I think that's a trap.
I know, but does that change your perception of the player?
It does, but it doesn't on purpose. I don't try to think about it. Like you were talking about how bad of a class Kwame Brown was in. Tyson Chandler went 1 spot behind him. I mean, to compare those 2 careers, that's a big damn difference. I mean, Tyson Chandler was the far superior player.
Yeah.
But I don't really take that into account. I also don't take into account how much money you made because I don't care. Kwame Brown's claim to fame here is I'm not a bust because I made a bunch of money and you all make a bunch of money. Every player in the NBA makes a bunch of money. It's a stupid argument to me. Mm-hmm. Oh, I made $64 million. Good for you. That did absolutely nothing for the Washington Wizards, the LA Lakers, or any team you ever played for. I could care less how much money you made.
Is somebody like Johnny Manziel a bust?
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's a 22nd pick. Mm-hmm. Not in the top 10, not in the top 15.
To be honest with you, one of the things that I look at that nobody ever seems to take into account is how hard you made everybody's life around you.
Yeah.
Johnny Manziel was a freaking nightmare because there were so many people that watched him in college that thought they just have to put him on the field. Every coach knew he was a disaster. Every coach knew he was a disaster because he couldn't throw. I mean, flat out, he couldn't throw. He was too little. He thought he was fast, and he wasn't. Johnny Manziel's 100% a bust to me. I'm probably harsher on the bust scale than most are because for me, it's what did I think you were coming in, what do I think you could have been, and what did you become? Mm-hmm. I also blame teams more for bust than I blame the player. Yeah. Usually, not always.
A lot of
not always. Kwame Brown's one of the rare. He's one of the rare instances that I blame the player because he was just immature as shit, and he shows it now. It's just like yesterday. All right, so Kwame Brown has this show. He's going off on everybody, and cool. You're trending on Twitter. You're doing all of your things. That's all well and good. He's rehashing the camper with Cam Newton. You remember the story? You're a free agent, and the kid was talking shit to him. Mm-hmm. Well, Kwame Brown brought this back up on his show yesterday. Mm-hmm. It's an immaturity. It's straight up, you're a 39-year-old man. That's an immaturity. Because what he said was, if a kid would have walked up to a coach Cam Newton's size and talked like that boy, like that boy talked to Cam Newton back in my day, the coach would have slapped the living shit out of him. Yeah, and that coach would have been on fucking TMZ and Twitter and all the other things. It's not the same. You got to understand that we're not in the same world that you grew up in. And it's just an immaturity. You're a 40-year-old man talking about slapping a 12-year-old. I think about what I just said.
Right.
I mean, that's
I think you're taking one little thing out of.
No, I'm not. I've watched everything he's ever done. He does this constantly. He picks fights from 15 years ago, and I mean, he gets notoriety out of it
because he never said anything. And he was like the punching bag for everyone in the sports media for so long. And he's saying, like, wait a minute, why would I be the punching bag when I played 13 years when y'all don't say anything about Darko Milicic or Andrea Bargnani or Anthony Bennett or any of these guys that made less money, stayed in the league way less than I did. I stayed in the league 13 years. And I think that brings up a lot about, like, the sports media thing because it is a symbiotic relationship. Symbiotic, big word. But there is a symbiotic relationship between the media and players. As much as players hate media, they need media to hype up stories, to spark interest with fans. But there's a line of, like, at what point are media people making these narratives that fans and all these people latch onto that are incorrect narratives? Like, why would he be the poster child for this from Stephen A. and from all these people, and for people to still all these years later, after he's done no media, no interviews, before all this stuff happened, he never did interviews, never spoke out about it. And he was the punching bag for everyone. Why would he be when he did stay in the league 13 years? Like if me and Jeremy both went to go host SportsCenter and I stayed there for 6 months and got fired and he stayed for 5 years, people might call me a bust anchor on SportsCenter, but if it's Joe Schmo sitting on his couch calling me a bust, I'm going to be like, I did 6 months on SportsCenter. What if you don't even own a camera? Like, what are you talking about? Like, how could I be a bust? So related to another player like a Jeremy, yeah, I may be a bust. But to some sports media guy that never even started on his high school team, how can I be a bust to you?
I hate that
and
argument.
I know that that's the argument that people hate, but
I hate that argument.
It's not.
So you're telling me that the only people that are
player.
allowed to have an opinion on Kwame Brown are guys that get to some high level? That's stupid.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's the question I'm asking, though, is in the media, like, what is there a level where you should only stick to certain things, like on the court, and if you start calling somebody a scrub and all these things, but you're not bringing up everyone else that was there was top picks that only stayed in the league 2 or 3 years. How are you going to say the guy that, like, why is the guy that was in the league 13 years a punching bag?
Would you? All right, so let me ask you a question. Bigger bust, Kwame Brown, Greg Oden.
Greg Oden, but I mean,
You're drunk.
He was
you're wrong
injured,
and you're drunk. You're
how do you
wrong
figure?
and you're drunk.
How do you figure?
Because Greg Oden was good on the floor. He got hurt.
Yeah, I mean, he got hurt, but
when Greg Oden was on the court, he was actually good. Greg Oden averaged 9.7 rebounds and 2 blocks a game while he's on the floor. Kwame Brown played 600 games.
Yeah, but Greg Oden didn't play a season.
I don't disagree with you.
If he played 13
Greg
years,
Oden was at
his
least
numbers.
talented. Kwame Brown played 600 games and averaged 4.5 points a game.
Well, you don't get a number one pick if you're not talented. He was talented. He didn't turn it. He wasn't developed the right way.
And he was lazy as shit. And everybody that was in Washington. You know the reason all these people have a problem with Kwame Brown? Because they played with him. Did you notice that every guy he took shots at, they all played with him? You not find that strange?
No, he didn't play with like Matt Barnes.
Yes, he did. He played with Matt Barnes with the Lakers.
Oh, but that's like towards the end of his career, and but still,
I'm not just. He was lazy as hell the entire time he was in the league. That's where he gets the disrespect. You want to know why Kwame Brown was a bust? In the history of the NBA, name me the last number one pick that averaged fewer points per game than Kwame Brown. I'll give you $1 million cash if either one of you can do it.
I mean, Anthony Bennett had to.
Nope. No, he didn't.
But it's way different doing averages on 13 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's way different doing averages over 13 years.
Before him. Anthony Bennett was after him.
Yeah. Okay.
And Anthony Bennett, that was a god-awful draft class. And that was, Cleveland got panned for that immediately.
Yeah.
And I even liked Anthony Bennett.
Yeah.
It was LaRue Martin. Give you a penny for your thoughts. Who is LaRue Martin?
Yeah. It's probably from the 60s or something.
I just think there has to be some kind of like acknowledgement, like from sports media. Okay, we talk, we sit up here and give our opinions on things, and we're totally in the right to do that. But you have to realize what comes with that in the sports media. If you're bashing someone forever, and then they come out finally and start like counteracting that narrative, show you some points that you might not have like realized or thought about, you have to be able to say, okay, I didn't think about that, and go the other way. Like, I actually don't mind the way Stephen A said, you know what, I was completely going in on this dude for all these years. He was my analogy for sucking for everything. Mm-hmm. But there's all these people that I could have chosen and not just picked on one person that had worse careers than Kwame did. And
were they number one picks?
Yeah, a lot of them were one or two picks. Andrea Bargnani, Milicic.
Andrea Bargnani had a far superior career to Kwame Brown. It's not even close. It's not even debatable. I'm looking at it right now. Andrea Bargnani averaged 11.5 points a game. It would take Kwame Brown 3 years to do that.
But he didn't get a lot of playing time his first however many years.
Who?
Kwame Brown.
Because he was awful. Because he was terrible.
18, yeah.
Because they
so was Andrea
him.
Bargnani. Bargnani was 19 coming out of Italy when he got drafted by the Raptors. 19, yeah, so was LeBron James. They were both number one picks. You know why Kwame Brown gets so much shit? Because listen to the list of number one picks. The two before him, and I'll go for a while after. Elton Brand, Kenyon Martin, then you have Kwame Brown. Yao Ming, LeBron James, Dwight Howard, Andrew Bogut, Andrea Bargnani, Greg Oden, Derrick Rose, Blake Griffin, John Wall, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis. That's why. Because one of these things is not like the others. One of these things just doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Because he was bad. And he had a shit attitude, which is totally indicative of what I see on this podcast.
There's a lot of what's going on with what happened to him was a part of that was a lot of it was he just didn't do the things he needed to. He was a young, immature kid who thought he was just going to come into the league and he was going to play and he got it. And he didn't work hard enough. And I think that was the biggest knock on him was somewhat. I agree. Yeah, he got to play a long career because he was talented enough to be on a roster. They wouldn't have kept him on a roster if he wasn't talented.
For 13 years, yeah.
But when you're the number one pick and you average 3 points a game, 3 rebounds a game, that is 100% a bust.
If the Wizards did the right thing in everyone's mind and got Paul Gasol first and he was the second or third pick and had this 13-year career, is he the biggest bust?
I still would have probably saw him as a bust because I feel like if you're a top 3 or 4 pick in your sport and you don't.
I could go down the list. There's so many top 4 picks that are fucking busts.
And I agree with you 100%.
So I think there's circumstances that go into it, and I just have a hard time.
I'm not going to say he's the worst bust of all time. He's a bust. What I'm saying is he's a bust. I could probably find a lot more players that were bigger busts than him.
In the NBA?
Yeah.
Kwame Brown's the biggest bust in the NBA in 20 years. Not debatable.
I don't think
Anthony
that's
Bennett's
true.
worse of a bust than him.
I disagree.
He only played like 2 years, and he was overweight and was never a contributor on half of a good team.
I mean, he was bad. I don't in any way dispute that.
I would take Kwame's career over Anthony Bennett's 100 times out of 100.
Yeah.
I'll play for 13 years and make way more money and play on all these teams.
As him. So you're doing it from the role of the player. I'm doing it from the role of the team. Anthony Bennett was a guy that we washed out in 3 years. Done. We're on a new shit. Kwame Brown was a headache for 12 years. There's a reason every player he ever played with hates him.
Then why did he stick around for 12
picking him up?
Because he was a big guy that could rebound. He was a serviceable defender.
That's my thing, though. There's these narratives, but like in the locker room, like you're not going to keep a guy around that's really that bad and that lazy in his 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th year, like just based on him being tall. Like there's other tall people in the league, and
I disagree with you.
I just don't see him as the biggest bust at all. I'd rather have his career over somebody like Anthony Bennett's. And I don't care, like whatever people have said, okay. But once it gets, you can't be all upset like, oh, Kwame is really coming at people and saying all this stuff and going off now when people have been saying this about him for so many years. And the way, like some people are handling it the right way and saying, oh, I didn't think about some of these things he's saying. If you really listen to the hours of stuff he's put out recently, he's really smart and he's right about a lot of stuff that people aren't thinking about. And the way like somebody like Charlemagne handled it, the radio guy from in New York at the Breakfast Club, he says he's the prince of pissing people off, the ruler of rubbing you the wrong way, all this kind of stuff. He talks about Kwame and talks about how his dad murdered somebody, how his brother did something terrible and was involved in drugs and stuff. And then when Kwame says something back to him, he sent a cease and desist letter. Like if you're going to be in the media and saying things about these people, you just got to be able to take it on the chin if they come back at you.
Right.
You can't just like go and hide behind stuff when these players speak back to you. I think there's a lot of times that like people don't put themselves like in the person's shoes. Like, yeah, they didn't live up to what you thought, but if you're in any business, having a 13-year career, making equivalent of $81 million, I just don't see how you're a bust compared to all these other and he says on the court I'm a bust. Yeah. But it's like the narrative of him as a person being a scrub, being a bust, being the guy that everyone equates to garbage when I would take his career over a lot of guys.
Because his expectations were higher. He was the number one pick.
So
and you're using Anthony Bennett. I'm going to tell you why nobody cares about Anthony Bennett. Because he was on the Cleveland Cavaliers when they were god-awful. Kwame was drafted and played with Michael Jordan. That's the reason that he's... You can't use somebody that nobody cares about. I mean, Anthony Bennett's a guy that held probably 80% of the people in the NBA forget he was the number one pick. Kwame was... I mean, that's part of his blessing is part of his curse. You were in the league so long that people remember you. Yeah. There is certainly something to that. But he's, to me... the biggest letdown ever because I actually think he had the talent. He was just lazy as hell.
But I just can't equate all of that to the play. Like, a lot of it is, he was lazy. He was immature. He said all those things. He literally called himself like, so what, I busted out on the court. This whole story is about how he was portrayed as the biggest bust out there, and when you compare his career to other, and like I don't take the number one, like I don't see that big of a difference in a number one and number two player. And a lot of it is like where they go. Like you can go to a shitty situation and be of a different generation and have people trying to develop you one way that you're not accustomed to, where if you would have went to this team at number two, you would have had a different career. A lot of it is like nurture versus nature. Like, you know, there's a million things that go on, and his dad, you know, whatever happened with his family and all that stuff, that's something that happens, you know, outside of basketball that you're not thinking about. And despite all that stuff, he still played 13 years and had 80 million. So I just don't understand how he's a bust, like as a person, like everyone says, and how he's the poster child for being a bust.
I got news for you. Everybody has family things, and it has absolutely nothing to do with your career. I could care less. What happens with your family, that's your problem. You don't care about what happens with mine. Yeah, nobody. I can't come in here and have a bad show and people go, "Oh, I wonder if him and his wife had a fight." Nobody gives a shit.
No, it's not.
It's just like, it'd be like a plane. It'd be like a pilot saying, "Oh, I had a bad day. Sorry, I crashed a plane into the ocean." No, that doesn't make any sense. I could care less about your family. Now, what you said about I see a number one and a number two pick similarly, NBA teams don't at all. The worst trade of the last 40 years was the deal that wound up with Cleveland getting them one pick from the Clippers.
I'm saying it's not his fault he was drafted first.
I didn't say it was.
As an 18-year-old
It's his fault he's considered a bust. You were lazy. You got fat. We watched you do it multiple times. That's his fault. And at the end of the day, it's his fault. You got drafted to the Wizards. You stayed in the league forever. More power to you. At the end of the day, you're a poor man's Montrezl Harrell. And you went one. You go number one, there's higher expectations. Just the way it is.
I like the way he's coming back out at some of these people. I mean, Matt Barnes is the biggest douchebag on the face of the planet.
Call him Becky with the good hair. Like,
you know what I mean? Like he's
been hilarious.
And he comes out and he wants to challenge him to a fight. It's like, you know, we just
12.
talked about.
That's a 12-year-old bullshit.
Matt Barnes
is the one who challenged him to a fight.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't like Matt Barnes either.
Yeah. It's just, I think that he's just at a point to where he's just had enough, and I don't mind what he's doing. I don't think he's. I agree with you, the stuff about hitting a kid and stuff, that's super childish. No, we don't need to talk. But he's just, when it comes to just straight up defending himself, I don't blame him. Go ahead and defend yourself.
I could care less. And I got news for you. The amount of notoriety he's gotten from this YouTube channel thing he's doing
is rocking him.
We understand this pretty well. I think we get how this works.
Yeah.
More power to you.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want to do. If people will listen to you, this is what I've always said about the NBA and shit like that. If people will listen to you, then it's not a problem. The problem is when you start alienating people from you. He had no fan base.
Yeah.
Nobody gave a damn what Kwame Brown thought. It's not like he's costing himself money. More power to you. I'm not going to consume it because I could care less.
Yeah.
You know, Kwame Brown's explanation of how he's not a bust, yeah, you are. 100% you are. 100% you are. I could care less what he thinks about that.
Yeah.
But now if people want to listen to it and sponsors want to pay for it.
I don't disagree. I think
get your money.
I still think he's definitely a bust. I do appreciate that he played in the thing for long, and I do think there's other busts that are worse than him. And that's just my personal opinion.
It's, you know, he said himself, on the court, compared to expectations, I was a bust.
See, and that's where I think he goes awry.
I get that.
Is that we don't care about anything else. I don't know why it is all of a sudden in the last 5 to 10 years that NBA players, and it's more NBA players than it is anything else, that you think we care about anything else.
But everyone talks about him still, all these years later after he doesn't say anything. But but you don't talk about other.
We still talk about okay. Let me give you an example. This is a behind the camera example. We were talking about this yesterday when this topic came up. Who was the first person you said? Who's the first person you said outside of Kwame Brown?
As a bust?
Mm-hmm. Was Sam Bowie.
Yeah.
That was 3 years before I was born.
Yeah, naming people that were picked in front of great.
Once you wind up in this bust category, you're there forever.
Yeah.
Darko Milicic, we've talked about him forever. Yeah, Darko played 10 years too. He's still a bust. You still took him in front of Dwayne Wade and Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
That was. You didn't do that right.
My whole thing is
every pick the Bobcats made for 4 years in a row.
was a bust. Yeah.
Adam Morrison, Sean May, every single one of those guys are complete busts.
But my whole thing with saying all of this is, okay, he admits, and everyone admits, like, he didn't live up to expectations. You're a bust on the court, whatever. But if you're a media person that's been talking about this dude for all these years and saying he's the bust and not bringing up a football player or anybody, Jamarcus Russell or anybody, when you're talking about the biggest bust or this guy's a scrub but he's no Kwame Brown, when you talk about this guy forever, when he comes out finally and starts to like go at you about certain things, like, you can't say, oh no, he's crazy, like, that's off limits, he can't talk about me. Like, the same way he was talked about for all these years.
He's allowed to come back.
He's allowed to come back and say different things, and you can't send him cease and desist. You can't say, oh no, I don't want any part of this. Like, I got to pick on you for all these years, but you're not allowed to come back and say I'm the shittiest whatever in my field of all time.
100%.
Like, you just,
call me
if you dish it out, you got to take it.
He can call me a fat ginger-headed fuck for all I care.
It would be awesome.
It's not going to change how bad he was.
Well, yeah, that's all right.
And I hope he does.
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
frankly, I hope he does. I hope he says
you.
I look like Luke Combs'
It would be awesome.
slack-jawed brother. That's fine.
I would steer right into that.
Done.
Kwame, put us in your mouth, man. Go ahead.
100%.
Wait,
Yeah.
What?
Well, that came out weird.
I didn't like how that was said.
That came out really weird.
All right, we've run a little bit over here.
But that's okay.
We're just we do stuff on Thursday.
Yeah, I know.
We do stuff on Thursday.
Our trio is fun to come and watch for sure.
As always, we've been brought to you by Wicked Weed Brewing. We've been live from the Wicked Weed Studios. WickedWeedBrewing.com. Drink different. Tank will be back in the morning. Tank will also be back with me on the ESPN Radio show this afternoon, 3 o'clock, 92.9, 880, and 1400 here in the Asheville market, on the iHeartRadio app, anywhere else you can take it with you, everywhere you go. All you have to do is search the Sports Tank with Jeremy Greene on iHeart. For Brian Haynes and Tommy Bradley, I'm Jeremy Greene. We thank you for joining us, and we'll see you this afternoon.
Go Knicks, baby!